everybody. Welcome to Soapbox. My name is Mauro DePasquale. Soapbox produced right here at WCCA TV, the People's Channel. We're certainly glad you're joining us. You know, WCCA's mission is to be here to share your story, to give you access to not only the cable channels, but to the production tools and technology you need to create content, to tell your story, share your story or your mission or your organization, or to mobilize volunteers. We're really part of the community, and we're here to educate and to help elevate you and empower you through community media. We want to say, and you, by the way, you can find us, you're watching us on cable 194 or perhaps at WCCATV.com. You may be watching us on Facebook, /WCCA TV, Twitter at WCCA TV 13, Instagram, WCCA TV 13, YouTube, WCCA TV 194 Worcester. So we're everywhere you need to be or you are, and we need you to be with us, actually. WCCATV.com/video. You can watch free on-demand viewing there. Thousands of your favorite WCCA TV shows. Actually, well over 6,000 shows are up there going back to 1989. We want to thank our sponsors for making this show possible: Stephen Welch Optician, Akuri Moda, Sal Akuri, and also Worcester Eye Care Associates right here on Main Street, and all the members of our WCCA TV Circle of Friends sponsors. We really thank you for your support and your generosity for making our programming possible. Starting off today, this week here, 2019 already, once again, a belated Happy New Year. We probably won't say that anymore for this year. But we want to introduce to you the author of Stop Depriving the World of You. Pretty interesting book. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, but it's a great read. The author is Darlene Corbett, and she's a professional speaker, author, and success coach. And we're going to learn about overcoming that feeling of being stuck. So how do we become unstuck is primarily the topic in the news for today's show. Darlene, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to meet you. And I read some of your book, as you heard, and
yes.
I found it really. I wanted to keep going, but my schedule was so crazy, I had to stop at some point.
Right.
But I really am enjoying it. Let's start off with a little background about yourself.
Sure.
You told me earlier you're from Worcester.
I
am. Yeah.
I was born and raised in Worcester. I attended elementary, junior high, at the time they called it. I went to Holy Name High School, Holy Name CCHS. And then I went to Becker for a couple of years. Then I went to Worcester State, where I got my bachelor's degree. And then I took a year off and went off to BU, became a social worker, got my MSW, came back to the Worcester area, and eventually I went into private practice in Leominster, Mass. Then I met my husband, and I went to Needham, and that's where I joined a group private practice as a psychotherapist called Needham Psychotherapy Associates. And I'm still there. So it's been over 26 years, almost 26 years.
Oh, yes, you're still working in Needham?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Some of the time, yes.
Some of the time, yeah. That's great. So you do the psychotherapy.
Yeah.
You've done some social service stuff.
Yes.
It's all connected.
Yes.
So is that what is your forte? Is it helping individuals?
So I've done a variety of things over the years. I used to do more individual and couples and groups, and now I just primarily see adults, 18 and over, individuals, and I'm also a hypnotherapist, which I've incorporated in my new professional endeavor of speaking and writing and coaching. And hypnosis is a whole story in itself, but it's really something. It's like mental rehearsal, it's intense visualization, it incorporates focused attention. And there's a lot of myths about hypnosis, but it's very, very helpful in so many areas.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, sometime I'll interview you just about that.
Yeah, sure.
I know that's a whole subject in itself, right? So what led you into the writing field and the speaking, public speaking field? That's a whole different bag, really,
it is.
right?
It is.
Yeah, and is this your first book, by the way?
It is my first.
Okay, yeah,
and not my last. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I was a therapist, perfectly content, part of this practice, still am, and then some events happened. My husband's health, he had a change in his health and well-being, so we decided to move closer to the Worcester area where I grew up. And then my mother passed. I always say she took a one-way flight to heaven. And I started to think about, what else can I do? I'm in my 50s. What can I do? And I thought about taking my platform, taking on a larger platform, speaking. My message is helping people get unstuck. I've been doing it for over 30 years. let's take it to a larger audience. At one time, I would have said, oh, no way, I'm not getting in front of more than a few people. But now I really love it. And then I started writing. Because a lot of speakers want to write to get their message across. There's a mixed response about, is it helpful, is it more? I think it's more helpful. So I started writing blogs. And long story short, my articles got in front of an administrative assistant of a publishing company. And I happened to put her on my newsletter list. I said, you want to be at my list? Not thinking that she would look at my articles. And then she contacted me. And then a publisher and I had the conversation. And that is the genesis of my book.
Wow.
Yes.
That's interesting, yeah. Because to me, it's a scary endeavor to write something.
Yes.
It takes a lot of work.
It does.
Right?
And to put yourself out there
Yeah.
and know that you may be heavily critiqued, it does.
Right, yeah. And then what's the process like, if I can ask, about the writing for you? Is it something that you draw from your blogs? Do you just make time to sit down and start typing?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. So far ideas come to me, I'll hear something, I'll hear someone talking anywhere I can be, and I'll thought, wow, I'm going to start writing. So far, I've been very fortunate that it comes to me. I think I was writing so many articles on LinkedIn and blogging every week. It's like a muscle. You keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so now I write probably a couple of blogs a month for different sites, 60andMe. I started writing for Goodreads. I write for Thrive Global to keep the wheels going, you know?
Yeah.
And I love it. I just keep thinking of ideas and they come to me.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate.
Yeah. So now is the book out there? Is it out in the public
Yes.
view? I just want to hold it up so people can see it.
Yeah.
So this is available.
It's available, of course, on Amazon, of course, Kindle and regular book. Barnes & Noble's. It's in Barnes & Noble. It's in Target, and I believe it's in Walmart. It's on iTunes.
Yeah.
So it's very accessible.
So it's very accessible.
Yeah.
And it's called Stop Depriving the World of You.
Yes.
Okay. So very good. So now tell me something. You mentioned in the book a lot about getting unstuck.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Can you define that? What do you mean by unstuck?
Yes. So if you think about it, life is a beautiful journey, isn't it? But it can be topsy-turvy.
Yeah, right.
And I said sometimes when it's difficult, it's like we're walking on an obstacle course. You get over one, and then you hope to keep going and have steady ground, but you don't know when the next one is going to come. So it's human nature to get stuck. We all get stuck. But sometimes people feel they can't get unstuck. And people say they can't change. And that, to me, is such a false narrative. I've had clients come to see me, and they say, Darlene, so-and-so, they're never going to change. I said, well, there's change all around us. As I say in my book, there's internal, there's external.
Yeah.
But also that everyone is capable of change from the time they were born until the time they leave this earth. And there's a science behind it, neuroplasticity, which I talked about, that talks about the malleability of the brain.
Right.
So behavior can change. It's just a matter of working and work. It's a habit.
Yeah.
And habits form in the conscious, and then they go to the unconscious. And that's why they're stubborn. But everybody's capable. And you know, when people get in trouble, such as relationships, all of a sudden you notice they will change. It's sustaining it, though. That's the difficult part.
Yeah. I think before they get over, take that next step, there's a little bit of fear that might be there first, right? So something keeps them stuck, right? Right?
Yes.
Because I know, you know, when you talked about the science, I have a brother that had a stroke.
Yes.
And he was completely paralyzed on one side, and he was a professional musician.
Oh, yeah.
So, but he got back.
Yes.
See, he got back.
Yes.
And we had to work really hard every day, you know, giving him like little lessons and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and he overcame it. So to me, when I was reading about the malleability of the brain and all that, that reminded me just of that, because it was definitely a method to getting the brain to like rewire itself, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. So what keeps us stuck in the first place? Because, you know, and I'll be honest, I think everybody feels that. I know I felt like that.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's over grief or something like that.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, you just feel like that you can never get over something, or maybe are we supposed to get over everything?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think some losses are just so difficult, but we have no choice. We always have that wound, and I always say it kind of shrinks to like a laparoscopic scar. So we often feel the dull ache, but we have to keep going because what choice do we have? Because if we don't, we won't function.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's difficult. I think life is full of unfairness. We know that. I'm not going to in any way dismiss that. But what's the best response? Is success. And again, it's hard work. It's a belief that you can. It's a trying to believe in something. It's a desire. It's a wish. And to try to develop it. But it's not easy. And I think you have to be, the other thing is sometimes other people don't want you to change. They'd rather you be the way you are. And sometimes it's scary for one to change because it may impact a friendship, a relationship, how they operate in the world around them. So it's sometimes easier. But it's less fulfilling.
Yeah, interesting. You said that you believe everybody can become unstuck. And you told a little bit about your first story, which has seemed to me like that kind of a change happened because of what your husband was going through.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how being raised in Worcester impacted your journey to this point.
Yes. So, being raised in Worcester is, as we know, a lot of people just stay in Worcester. And I would have stayed in Worcester if I hadn't gone to graduate school. Came back, though, and hadn't gone off to Needham, and now I'm back. But I find Worcester, the community of growing up was very, very close, very warm. I had people, you go into restaurants, you call it honey. I'm still going to restaurants and call it honey. And I love it. I find it not offensive, men and women. And it was something of warmth, a lot of the different cultures, a lot of the different foods. I grew up at a time where you could go outside and play in the neighborhood, and your mother would call you.
Where did you grow up? Can I ask you?
Off of Hamilton Street.
Oh, okay.
Yes, right off of Boston Ave.
Yeah.
Up the
yeah.
So not far from UMass. And it's so funny, I did a presentation recently and I found out the woman in charge, her son bought my mother's house. Talk about small world.
Yeah.
But so it was really that warmth and that feeling of safety and connectedness and just having a lot of people around. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up in Worcester was a nice, especially back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It was a great place to
Yes.
be.
Yeah.
Kids had a lot to look forward to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Real friendships.
Yeah.
Really, everybody got together.
That's right. Yeah. And you didn't really think about, oh, I don't have this or I have that. At least I didn't. I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That area up there is a nice area too. I knew a lot of people up there too. So.
Yeah.
So that really impacted your journey into. I know you had that warm background and everything, but you think that's what led you into caring and trying to be helpful to others?
I think that was some of it, but also there were disabilities in my family.
Okay.
And that often, the research shows that usually, not always just the oldest female child often goes into the helping profession because you learn to be more tuned in, you learn to be more sensitive, you learn to be more understanding, and you have a desire to help. And I'm not saying it's all of that, but I think that was a piece of it.
Yeah. Certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
So many people, as they get into their 60s, considering, I know all my buddies are all retired.
Right.
So, and it's tempting.
Yes.
So many people are going towards retirement. You're taking a different direction. You're like starting fresh and new. And
I am.
So can you talk a little bit about that? What's making you take that different approach?
I always say this to people. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a work in progress, and I'm a pursuer of excellence. And I've always loved learning. And I always felt that if I stopped learning, I would wither. I really love to learn. And so this new endeavor, I see that there's no bounds. Speaking, a lot of the speakers do reach their 60s because of life experience. I mean, there are the young speakers, but really, your wealth of experience really helps build that resume, if you will. And also writing, you can go on indefinitely. There was a man, I mentioned it in my book, Harry Bluestein. He wrote his book in the 90s, when he was 90-something, to help assuage the grief he had for his wife. So I think that you don't have to be a writer or a speaker, but I think it's about finding purpose. And there's so many people that are lacking purpose. They don't know what to do. And again, I'm not suggesting they have to work. It's about choice. But finding something, and for me, I found a passion, and that's what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So
Yeah. The passion is very important.
Yes.
To find. So you're really feeling that fulfillment.
I am.
In the writing process.
Absolutely.
And you're getting feedback from people?
Yes, people like my writing, yes.
Yeah.
It was very frightening for me at first because I thought, who's going to read this? And people have been very responsive, so I've been very pleased with that. I write like I talk.
Yeah, just let it go right out. So, you talk about writing about the importance of what's the most important characteristic about getting unstuck?
Great question. Tenacity. grit, because without that, it's people give up sometimes, and I can see why. It's tenacity, is staying the course. If you really believe you can do it, you stay the course, but it's tough. You have to have that tenacity to keep going, to climb that mountain, to climb that hill, because it's tough. Life's, as I said, difficult.
I think it gets tougher as you get older.
It does.
Too, right?
It does. Yes.
Because you had some experience, and maybe you go, last time I climbed that mountain, I fell.
That's
or whatever,
right. That's right.
So how do you overcome that?
You have to keep going. I mean, the people that are most successful, they're not the most intelligent, they're not the most beautiful, they're not the most gifted, they're the most tenacious. I mean, if you think about, I read about Thomas Edison, and I'll talk more about him, but he had 10,000 patents before he was, I think, successful, or at least apparently successful. I mean, many people would give up long before, but what would we be missing now if he hadn't? And you hear about that, about a lot of the inventors, a lot of the writers, that it's tenacity, but even people that overcome substance abuse addictions, all kinds of things that have interfered in their life, and they will tell you it supports, of course, but it's also, it's up to, in the long haul, it's up to you. It's your tenacity, your will, your desire to do it. And I'm not saying it's easy. You can see why sometimes people relinquish and say, forget this, it's too hard.
Yeah. Now, how does the goals impact that? I mean, does tenacity work better if you have, does the goal matter?
Yeah, I think it helps.
You know?
I think you want to, you want to have a plan or a goal. And what I say to some people is, maybe that goal has to be redirected. For example, say you want to be a world-class musician, symphony player. Well, maybe that's not going to happen, but you can take that talent and go in another direction. You don't have to throw it out. So you have to sometimes redirect yourself. And that, I mean, it just is the way it is, but you don't have to give it up. If you feel you have something important that you want to overcome to reach that goal, keep going and find a way to do it.
So, but if you're chasing your passion, you're most likely going to find the way, even if you redirect it.
That's right, exactly.
Leads you usually where you want to go.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, did some of this come from working with some of your clients?
Absolutely.
Some of this knowledge that you have?
Absolutely. I saw a man for many years that had been an athlete, and he became paralyzed at a young age. He never gave up. He eventually went off. He passed on, I say, a one-way flight to heaven for him. He was a sweetheart. But he never gave up that possibly there'd be a cure. He worked. He went back to school. He got a standing ovation. And he just never gave up. And I said to him, you have an athlete's brain. It's the tenacity and the will. So he was one, he's a great example. He's in the book towards the final part, but so many people I've learned from that they've overcome difficulties. I mean, they've been my greatest teacher as an adult. Obviously, my family and all those along the way helped me growing up, but I have sat with I still do, the most amazing people. I'm honored, but I've learned from them all. I've helped them, and they've certainly taught me. Yeah.
When you talk about tenacity, and it's that struggle of going and, being, you have to be, from what I've been reading in your book, you have to be somewhat open to even the failure part of it. So you can get back up again and try again. You talk a little bit about collateral beauty. And that was a beautiful term, really. And it's kind of an opening term, too. Want to talk a little bit about that, collateral beauty?
Yeah, I'm glad you like it, and I'm so glad I saw the movie. So the movie was with the wonderful Will Smith, Helen Mirren, I forget who else is in it, but I was reluctant to see the movie because the reviews weren't great, and I saw some of the coming attractions, but I thought, I want to go see that movie. Something was calling, and that is what brought me in touch with that beautiful term, collateral beauty, and I thought, what's that mean? And I looked it up. It meant what the movie said it meant. So as we know, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen the movie, but it was something very dark that happened to Will Smith in the movie. And he had to find, people kept saying, look for the collateral beauty. And he had to find it. And collateral beauty is that of the worst of times, we have to find light in the darkness. Again, life can sometimes feel like it's total darkness, but if we can find that flicker of light, we have to do that in order to go on. Otherwise, we won't go on. And that's what he ended up doing. And I love it because it really is about beauty. We have to find beauty amongst those difficult, for example, the weeds. Where's that rose? And then finally you see it. That's how life can be sometimes. It's so heavy.
Right. We started talking a little bit about, people going through grief, depression, or just really, anxious or fearful, anxious,
Yes.
Fearful anxiety. Could you give examples how?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, for example, we have a lot of people that are suffering from depression and anxiety. They're probably, as a therapist, I hear those the most, and they have to see that it's temporary. And people that are depressed, that's hard to see.
Yeah.
They can't see it. And people I work with, I said, you have to believe me. Nothing stays the same. That's really true. Even though when you're mired in that darkness, it feels like it will always stay that way. So if they even make a small movement, that to me is major. If they, for example, can't get out of bed, and then one day they can get out of bed, I point that out. One day they put some makeup, if it's a woman or whatever, a man, clean themselves up, take a shower. They'll say, oh, this is nothing. It's not. It is something. Mm-hmm. It's momentous. And they have to remind themselves, if they can do that, eventually it will shift. Because depression can weigh us down, but there's ways around it. And also, a way around that also is connecting, finding people that will support you. And sometimes it's the people that you least expect.
Yeah.
But you have to believe. If you don't believe it, you have to believe the person that's giving you hope. And that's what it's about, trying to find hope, to know that you can get through this.
Yeah. And maybe how do you sort of keep that darkness as something that, as a learning moment, right? A part of your growth, part of who you are, part of your journey forward.
Yes. I mean, some things, as I said, feel so just overwhelming. It's hard. But as I said to you, it's like having a wound. It may never totally heal, or it may become like a scar that's a dull ache. But you have to go on, and you have to find ways to weave around it. For example, I read an article about a woman that I'll never forget this, in Connecticut. She had lost her 3 daughters and her parents in a fire. I mean, how do you even ask someone to go on? Mm-hmm. And I read about her recently, and it was very painful. She went, of course, through so much, but she found love again, and she just found a way to stay away from places that remind her. And she was reminded by a religious clergy to remind you, you'll always be a mother, you'll always be a daughter. But it's, I mean, these horrible situations happen, but if you're going to live, you have to find a way to navigate it.
Yeah. So it's something we have little choice in, but we have to be open to that in the beginning. Yeah. Right. Reminds me of St. Paul said that you have to be, when I'm at my weakest, I'm at my strongest. It's like that's the place where you start.
Yes.
You can start. You can always go up.
Yes.
And there's a beautiful song. I think Quincy Jones wrote it many years ago, called "Everything Must Change." You should check it out.
I will.
It'd be a good soundtrack to your book.
Oh, right. I will. Thank you. I will. Everything.
Everything must change.
I like that.
But when you were talking about that, the lyrics and that all of a sudden came to me, and I haven't heard that song in years.
Okay.
But it's about that. It's about accepting the fact that everything, physically and
that's right.
It's all in a process.
It is a process, yes.
You mentioned historical figures.
Yes.
Can you talk? We got a couple minutes.
Sure.
About 2 minutes,
okay.
basically. But maybe in 1 minute of that, and then I want to get people to understand where they can get.
Sure.
Stop depriving the world of you.
Sure.
Yep.
I already mentioned Edison. Winston Churchill. Britain was alone in terms of trying to fight Hitler. And if anyone didn't see the movie with Gary Oldman, look at him. He had everybody.
Churchill was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. But look what he was against. I mean, people they said no. Thankfully, the king supported him. But the point is, the whole world, all of Parliament was saying no, and they really did not support him, and he ended up being right. The other one I want to mention is George Eliot. She wrote the book Middlemarch. Now, back in I think it was the 1800s, they wouldn't let a woman write.
Right.
She disguised herself as a man.
Right.
Talk about creativity also, but tenacity. And look at the masterpiece that came from that.
Amazing. Good, very good examples.
Yes.
And you say in your book, stop depriving the world of you.
Yes.
So I guess that kind of insinuates that, the you is really important to the rest of the world.
Yes.
And you're part of we impact each other.
That's right. I started saying it to clients, people that were very shy or had been very wounded in life, very functional but couldn't connect with other people. I said, listen, you can do it with me. And they say, well, you're easy to talk to. I said, I'm not the only one. There's many people. I said, you are depriving the world of you. Stop depriving the world of you. And my publisher said, that's your title.
Yeah.
And it was.
See how that works? So
Yes.
that your own words came back at
That's
you.
right. There you go. Thank you. Yes.
So, once again, stop depriving the world of you, Darlene Corbett. It's been really a pleasure to meet you and talk with you.
You too.
And people can reach again through. You want to name
My
the venues?
website, sure,
your website.
DarleneCorbett.com. They can sign up for my newsletter.
Yep.
And also Facebook, Darlene Corbett Unstuck, Twitter at Unstuck Speaker, and LinkedIn I'm on there also, and Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't remember what my title is on Instagram. I'm on all of them, yes.
But I'm sure if we Google Darlene Corbett, Corbett.
That's right.
Darlene is you're going to get a hold of her and really benefit from reading that book. Darlene, thank you so much.
Thank
it's been
you
a
so much,
pleasure
Mauro.
meeting you,
Thank you.
and we look forward to hearing more from you. And we'll get you back to talk
Yes.
about the other subjects
Yes,
there that
absolutely.
you're
I'd love
involved
to.
in. All right, Darlene Corbett, once again, stop depriving the world of you. Highly recommend it. Look it up. And publisher is Sound Wisdom?
Yes.
Is that- yeah, Sound
Yes.
Wisdom Publishing, soundwisdom.com. We're thanking her for this informative and really delightful conversation. We hope it's been some help for you. If you have questions, contact Darlene. Maybe you're suffering through some issues and you need to get unstuck, and I hope you do. Until next time, I'm Mauro DePasquale. I look forward to seeing you on WCCA TV, the People's Channel.